What up, Tyler?
Yeah! What up, nigga? Damn!
What you gonna have?
Nigga, shit. Fucking shit.
Nigga, shit. What the fuck is this?
Yeah! Damn!
This is my little brother on my mother's side. Our father died. He was living with my grandmother on the north side of Sacramento. But this fag ain't just visiting, he's settling in. He can't wait to start meddling and doing the evil shit we do.
Does he skate?
Yeah, he skate too.
Man, this nigga ugly.
And he raps, ooh.
Damn!
This the newest Wolfgang member, and he...
What's his name?
Earl.
Yeah!
Man,
Damn!
this nigga's forehead is so fucking big. This nigga, look at this fucking nigga's lips, dog. This nigga's lips is like a split Sunday.
Yeah!
Yo,
Damn!
this nigga's mom is getting.
That's fucked
Yo,
up.
this nigga looks like an African poet.
Yeah! Damn!
Yo,
Earl, say something.
this nigga's forehead looks like a fucking big ass moose.
Say something. Trust me, guys, he can rap.
Bitch.
Just say something. Nigga, don't be a bitch,
Yo.
nigga. Say something.
Nigga rap, you fucking suck,
Trust me,
probably.
guys, he can rap. Just say something.
Some Rap Songs is the fourth full-length project and the third full-length album released by rapper, poet, artist, genius, Earl Sweatshirt. Earl is one of the most versatile rappers of all time, having the pen game and experience far surpassing even some of the most talented rappers out there. Just like with many rappers who start young and early, the sound of Earl Sweatshirt has changed throughout his musical career. However, the gap of even subject matter alone between the Earl mixtape and Feet of Clay is tremendous, going from a troubled teen to a troubled adult. However, while every album is immensely enjoyable for me to listen to, one project stands out above the rest, and that album is Some Rap Songs. The sound, the production, everything about it is so different, and it seems to fall into a category of an entirely new genre. But there is one theme in the album that stands out to me from everything else. The deep-seated themes of the entire album. The sadness and the depressing experience that Earl goes through represent some of the most relatable feelings in me that I have ever felt. A feeling of nihilism and loss of hope that I have never heard in any piece of art ever. For the average listener, you may think that Some Rap Songs is just another album released by another artist, but that isn't the case. Every track builds off of the one before, creating a conglomerate of stories of Earl's hardships and struggles throughout his life. And that is what the purpose of this video is. I am here to explain to you why Some Rap Songs is one of the most relatable albums ever made.
Wake the fuck up, you faggot.
How about you shut the fuck up, Mom?
So you feel ready to go? Because, I mean, I'm not going to lie, dude. A lot of us just straight rap fans, even old as fuck people like me, feel that you have a chance to be like, you know, one of the dopest MCs around.
The year is 2008. A young teen going by the name of Tebe Hosetsile, going under the alias of Sly Tendencies, was in the process of completing his first ever mixtape, Kitchen Cutlery. Said mixtape had a total of 11-ish tracks, however the tape wouldn't be released until 2009. All of the tracks in the mixtape were very impressive, having a freestyle over the all-caps Mad Villain beat, and also receiving aided production from Weird Eye, a friend of Sly's, who was in the short-lived group called the Backpackers. Sly started to make a bit of a name for himself, not only through his music, but also a steadily growing MySpace page where he posted his music. A little after the kind of release of his unfinished mixtape, Sly decided to reach out to the founding member of the up-and-coming Odd Future, Tyler the Creator, who was, at the time, equally underground, not even having released Bastard yet. Impressed with the pen game and rappability of his music, Tyler accepted Sly as the next member in the Odd Future collective. By this point, Tebe was in a new age of his still early music career, finally changing his name from Sly Tendencies to the commonly known Earl Sweatshirt. In the same year of his joining of Odd Future, we would see Earl make big waves in the group, becoming one of the most successful and well-known of his buddies, getting a feature in Tyler's own mixtape, Bastard, and several other music pieces. And only a year after his joining of OF, we would see the release of Earl's first ever official mixtape, Earl. This tape was self-released by Earl Sweatshirt himself, having production mainly from Tyler the Creator and Left Brain. The mixtape painted a clear picture to the public that Earl wasn't just some young kid who didn't know what he was doing, but actually a fantastic storyteller with immense potential. Odd Future was only growing larger and larger by the day, and from the group's success, Earl was only rising. However, the fun and games would be cut short, as several months later, Earl would go missing. In the summer of 2010, Earl would be sent to Samoa by his mother due to misbehavior and lack of discipline in his personal life.
It sucks that we're performing at our home base, and there's somebody by the name, I know him as Tebe, and he's not here right now. Some of you guys know him as Earl. That's my nigga, and I miss him a lot. I'm about to tear up.
Free Earl became the slogan of Odd Future in the coming months due to Earl's exile, raising up a lot of ruckus around the hip-hop community, having many people furious with Earl's mother for sending him there. Despite this being a tough time in his life, Earl actually seemed to look back fondly at his time spent in Samoa, at least for the most part. About a year and a half later in 2012, Earl would be released from Samoa, tweeting out in February of that year that he was back. Earl would be featured in version 2 of the Odd Future tapes on Oldie, receiving acclaim from fans of not only his change in wordplay, but also his new maturity in his music. And on August 20th of 2013, Earl would release his first ever album, Doris, the prelude to his later album, Some Rap Songs.
Shut the up.
Earl has a total of 5 full-length completed projects: the Earl mixtape, Doris, I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside, Some Rap Songs, and the Feet of Clay EP. The Earl mixtape starts off as the introductory piece to Earl's career in Odd Future, being the first thing he released under the group. The album details the fictional misadventures of Earl, where he commits a multitude of crimes like rape, murder, underage drug use, and overall violence. The mixtape obviously has influence from Tyler and the rest of the crew, not even because Tyler was the main producer on the album, but also because Earl admired the styles that Tyler put on Bastard in the Odd Future tapes. And speaking of it, the production on this mixtape has this grainy sound to it, with dark and deep synths and piano on many of the tracks, but also with a chopped and screwed aspect to it as well, like on the track Moonlight. The tape contains guest features ranging from Haji Beats to Vince Staples to Tyler the Creator, with each feature rigging off of Earl's style to create these entertaining stories on each of the tracks. A great example being on the track Epar, with Earl rapping about holding 3 women hostage in his car, driving along the road saying that Odd Future is back, killing a cop and stuffing him into his trunk by the end of the track. While the mixtape is great and a perfect first impression to Earl Sweatshirt, there isn't really a cohesive storyline to this mixtape, with Earl even admitting that the mixtape was a little sloppy and all over the place. 3 years later, we would see the release of Earl's first studio album, Doris, with the themes and production on this album being a step up in maturity for Earl. This album dives far deep into the depression of Earl and the critical reception of his previous work, delivering the message that fame is pretty fucking stressful. This is especially noted on tracks like Burgundy, with his fans saying that they don't care how he feels and that they just want more music to drop from him. There are depressing tracks all over this album, with the most notable ones being Chum, with the lyrics of this song diving into his lackluster relationship with his father. This album has very obvious influence from MF Doom due to the themes of certain songs creating this villainous anti-hero type of vibe to it. Many of the tracks on this album have a very deep and sly delivery coming from Earl's voice. The lack of enthusiasm and emotion coming from Earl's delivery seems like it would ruin the album, but it actually helps it, showcasing the low-down nature of Earl's mentality on the world. This album has production from much more than just Tyler this time, getting produced by notable names like Frank Ocean, Bad Bad Not Good, Matt Martians, and of course Tyler. There are several more notable tracks on this album, but aside from them, Doris painted a clear change in style from Earl's usual music, but an unclear direction into where he would go next. And that question was answered on March 23rd of 2015. I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside, the second studio album by Earl Sweatshirt, stands as one of the most nihilistic albums I have ever heard in my entire life. By this point in Earl's career, it was the most depressing album I'd heard, with many of the tracks on this album genuinely putting me in a very dark place, evoking many negative emotions and sparking a remembrance of many bad memories in my fucking life. However, with that all being said, I was able to relate to a lot of what Earl was saying on the album. The feelings of loneliness, pushing people away, being relentlessly antisocial, all made me feel a little better about myself, making me realize that I wasn't alone in this bottomless pit of life. Earl talks about his struggles with fame and depression, to a hard breakup he had with his previous girlfriend. The production of this album is nearly entirely self-produced, ranging from this dark lo-fi sound like on the tracks Faucet and Grown Ups, to the strange yet impactful instrumentals like on the track Radio and the outro to Mantra, to this hard and almost scary sound like on Off Top and the closing track Wool. I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside had the same lack of emotion and enthusiasm that Doris did, but almost expanded on it, delivering the many dark lyrics with this melancholic sound. This album spoke to me in a way that not many albums ever have, and solidified Earl as one of the greatest rappers of all time, for me at least. A little over a month later, we would see the release of an unexpected EP-type song titled Solace.
Late for everything, my face to the cement, that's how I always seen it. I spent days faded in the new. You can see it in my face, I ain't been eating, I'm just wasting away.
When I first heard Solace, it had this very strange sound to it, with very strange mixing and an incredibly experimental sound. Earl seems to come to terms with his depression, realizing that he must accept the hand he's been given in order to move past his transgressions of his difficult early life. To initial listeners, this seemed like some strange one-off song that would pass as another experiment in Earl's music. But no one knew just how important this song was in shaping the future of Earl's musical career. Some Rap Songs was released on November 30th of 2018, after a long 3-year hiatus from his previous LP. And lo and behold, I didn't like it. It sounded sonically weird. It was just strange. The mixing was strange, and initially it seemed very repetitive to me, and at the time, didn't at all compare to I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside. I didn't touch the record for a bit, but then I gave it a second listen, and another one, and another one, another one, another, and another, and another, and another, and a couple listens later, and it grew to become one of my favorite albums of that year. The pen game, the storytelling, the weird mixing all came together to create this scene for the topics of Some Rap Songs. This album was almost entirely self-produced by Earl himself as well, having Earl go into detail of the roots of his depression. The opening track, Shattered Dreams, has this odd voice sampled instrumental of a song titled, funnily enough, Shattered Dreams, by The Endeavors. This song sets the stage as the very first lyrics of the song is a speech from James Baldwin, where he says, quote, imprecise words, with the inclusion of that sample being meant to drive home the point that no amount of words were able to capture the amount of emotional trauma that Earl has experienced. The next track, Red Water, is an obvious metaphor to blood, having a repetition in the song of 8 continuous bars talking about his late father. Moving on to possibly one of my favorite tracks on the album, we have Cold Summers. This track uses a sample from the song Mighty Flames, and discusses the topics of substance abuse in his life, and how it's negatively affected him. Nowhere to Go is the next track, and one of only 2 singles released from this album, and the song is just as it sounds. Earl seems to describe this song as where he was at the time, feeling so alone that he felt that there was nowhere for him to go. And the album just continues on to this descent into sadness and depression, being quite possibly the darkest point in his career and a state of mind in his life. Darker than Earl, darker than Doris, and darker than I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside. And the further you listen into the depths of each and every track on this album, it makes you think, is Earl really okay? Is Earl in a safe space? Is he in a good spot? What has driven him into this departure of depression? In the summer of 2018, Earl had to cancel a European tour due to his depression and anxiety. By this point in Earl's life, he was having an extremely rough patch, more so than before in 2015. His father had only recently passed away several months before, being a hard-hitting blow to him and his mother. Earl was already big into substance abuse since before this incident, having said so in many of his previous songs in his past projects. But I can only imagine that as a result of his father's death, this only rose the substance abuse by a decent margin. Earl's mindset on life has only dwindled in lack of hope for quite some time now, being very obvious from way before the release of Some Rap Songs. And to be honest, it's very hard to not have that same mindset in the world we live in today. Earl has this sort of nihilist mindset, which is always a double-edged sword. On one hand, you're always able to emotionally prepare for the worst, but the big side effect is your loss of care for many things. People with this type of mindset are always on the edge of everything, unable to feel the same care for the things they once loved. And that's where Some Rap Songs is so relatable. Earl is not a positive person. Earl has it pretty bad despite all of his success, and he knows that. And this album is his acceptance to that harsh reality. The only way Earl can overcome his depression is by accepting it, by admitting it, by venting out all of his issues through these harsh lyrics and a nice instrumental. In many ways, rap has become the only form of effective venting that Earl has done. We all have to reveal our skeletons in some way. And the antisocial nature of Earl is what makes him such a relatable MC. He's not perfect. He doesn't know how to handle his emotions. He feels alone. He's not a hero. But all of these things are exactly what make him a hero to so many people. Some rap songs has opened the door for so many people who have gone down the exact same road he has. You know, while researching this video, I noticed a lot of similarities between him and me. We're both young. We're both assholes. We both push people away. We both feel that nothing really matters. But I do look at an album like Some Rap Songs because it takes an entirely different perspective on that view. It's that small glimmer of light at the end of the long-winded tunnel of life. And maybe one day, we'll all be able to reach it, just like Earl has. Earl is definitely in a much better place now. After the release of the deluxe edition of Feet of Clay, his mood has seemed to change for the better, despite everything he's gone through, and Some Rap Songs stands as a testament to that. That is why I feel that Some Rap Songs is, and always will be, the most relatable album ever made.
And tell grandma I be with a short. I won't panic when they send her for me, cause I ain't got time for feeling sorry. I gotta be on point when duty call.